Okay, GM everyone. So we're here for episode 3 of Monster Community Podcast. So I'm Mr. Yellow, or Andy, if you want to call me that. Either way, it's fine. I'm really looking forward to this one today because we've got a very super special guest, and we're going to talk about historic NFTs. So I'll just let the rest of the monsters introduce themselves. So Sleepy.
Hey guys, I'm Sleepy. Very happy to be here. We have a very special guest today. We're going to be talking about historical NFTs and what the space has, what that space has actually done for the rest of the space. So I can't wait. I can't wait to talk to you guys about all these amazing projects, these amazing communities. So very excited. We have Kuma and we have Waldo.
Yeah, what's up? I'm Kuma. Yeah, if you watch any other podcasts, you kind of know I've been in space for a little bit. I trade. I just enjoy space. I like to collect. I'm excited for this conversation. Honestly, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a lot of good info. So I'm really looking forward for this one, for real.
Where's the camera today, Kuma? Where's the camera, mate?
I can turn it on. I mean,
save it for later, mate. Save it as a surprise. Waldo.
Yeah, I'm old Waldo, part of the Monsters, and I've been in NFTs for 8-9 months, and I'm pretty much here to learn. I'm kind of excited to see how this goes too. And I guess our special guest is Adam.
Yes.
Adam. What's up, guys? Yeah, it's fun to be here, man. I know Sleepy from in real life. It was awesome meeting him. But it's awesome to talk to you guys and reach out to new communities to educate people about historical NFTs and what they are and why they're important. I think we all see NFTs as a big part of the Web3 future. We all feel this and know this intuitively. And I think when you start to dig into historic NFTs and realize the projects and the developers and the people who were building back starting in 2011 all the way forward, it comes into light just how valuable these are. And that's kind of the overall thesis and what we've been working on really for the last over a year now, kind of building out this community of collectors who are interested in the history of NFTs and kind of hold these historic projects in high regard. So happy to dive in today.
Awesome. I'm very happy to have you here, Adam. First off, can you tell us a little bit about how you got introduced into the space?
Sure. I've been in crypto. I tell people Bitcoin at 32 because that's like, oh, you were so early. It's like, yeah, so early and still not buying, right? And I think anybody in this room or anybody who's bought or sold NFTs knows regrets, right? Missed opportunities. This is part of the space.
Part of the game.
We do. It's all missed opportunities, right? I got back into crypto, like really into crypto in like 2017 and 18 with the ISO booms, tried to build a business around it. Completely failed. But I've been tracking it. I Bitcoin and smart contracts when Ethereum launched always made sense to me. The idea of digital baseball cards, digital ownership made sense. But it wasn't until like late 2020 when CryptoPunks started popping again price-wise. I heard about and knew about CryptoPunks when they happened in 2017. Again, never bought any. But when the price started popping in 2020, my ears perked back up. And basically in mid-March, when we had this kind of rediscovery of historical NFT projects, there was a magical week where 4 of these projects were kind of rediscovered. It was CryptoCats, Mooncats, Curio cards, and Ethereum, all within a week of each other. That blew it up in my mind. Like, holy cow, this is game on. And all you got to do is go back and find some of these old projects. And that's what I've been doing for the last year. It's been amazing.
That's beautiful. And would you say, are you a collector of rare stuff and physical life?
No, I'm really not. I'm not a hardcore collector, but I absolutely realize that collecting in general is just part of a human nature. Like, all you have to do is look at kids and and you'll find that genetically it's built into us. Like, every kid has a shell collection, or like my mom would tell the story. She didn't allow us to have like toy guns when we were kids, So we made guns out of sticks, right? And I had literally a closet full of like my stick gun collection. You know what I mean? And it's like people are natural collectors, right? And taken to its extreme, it's hoarding, right? Taken to where the people where we hold it in high esteem, it's high value art collectors, right? And so it's just part of human nature. This is what we do as humans. What we collect is unique, right? Some people collect tchotchkes or keychains or snow globes, right? And some people collect Picassos, right? And there's everything in between. And so NFTs are just another thing that people will collect.
Yes, I agree 100%. Something that really caught my eye when exploring the NFT archaeology. Archaeology. I'm so sorry.
It doesn't roll off the tongue, man. NFT history, maybe. Yeah, it's
NFT
easy.
history, yeah. So I wanted to ask you, archaeology. I've always loved dinosaurs since a kid. That word, I hadn't seen it in this space ever. I didn't know there was so much history in the space.
Yeah.
And when I first saw one of those White Rabbit threads, and he was speaking about all of this archaeology, it just blew my mind how there could be so much history on chain.
Yeah.
When do you think was that moment where you decided, I'm actually gonna help and go back and help bring these projects back to life through on-chain like analysis?
Sure. Yeah, it was really for me the second kind of rediscovery, right? So crypto cats happened first, and I was like, dang, this is really cool. Like it got me interested in like you had to go on to the blockchain, you had to interact with the smart contract. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. But then like 3 days later, Mooncats happened. And when Mooncats happened, like it was a visceral reaction for me. That holy cow, there's literally gold on the blockchain. All I got to do is go dig it up. All I got to go do is find it. And I've told the story a number of times now, but my life changed on Mooncats Day. I literally spent 10 plus hours every single day for the next 3 or 4 months looking for historic projects, looking for projects that were built on Ethereum, back in 2018, 17, 16. That's literally what I dedicated my life to.
That's amazing. And
I realize archaeology, it's a ridiculous term for something that's 6 years old or whatever, but it kind of just fit. And I don't remember who mentioned it to me, or somebody DM'd me and it was like, wow, you're really doing like archaeological digging. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm an NFT archaeologist, right? And it was like, and I realized the ridiculousness of it. But at the same time, the word kind of stuck.
It's amazing. It goes hand in hand. Honestly, goes hand in hand. You guys want to ask a question, Waldo?
Yeah, you've been doing lots of digging. How much more do you think there is to be discovered? Is it the tip of the iceberg?
Well, look, there are hundreds more that we didn't, relaunch because they have problems. Almost all of these old projects have problems because they were building before standards existed. And so they're literally building these NFTs before they knew what NFTs were, right? And so many of them, literally hundreds, have so many problems with them that they're basically unsalvageable, right? There's infinite supply, or the pricing mechanism automatically relists it, so you never really own the NFT, or that to 1,000. Like there's infinite problems. So there are literally hundreds of NFT projects that we didn't relaunch back to public because we didn't feel like there was any value there from a collectability standpoint. That said, my gut instinct has been wrong. Like I was filtering these back in April of last year, and we were like, oh, this one will work, this one won't work. There have been ones where I was like, this one will never work, this is stupid, and was completely wrong. Like ether rocks. Like they were all sitting there like half an ETH or 0.75 ETH or 1 ETH. Could have had basically all the ether rocks back in April, and didn't, because I was like, this is stupid. It's just pictures of rocks, and there are only 100 of them. right? Totally wrong, man. Totally wrong. So, you know, the thesis of what people are interested in, my thesis has changed over time. And so yeah, it's been a very, very interesting ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's very
Fundamentals are kicked right out of the door on that one. And almost every other thing in the space, fundamentals really don't matter. It's just it's an attention thing. It definitely is.
It's definitely an attention as of right now, because we're so early in like the development of the marketplace,
Yes.
right? And I've told literally everybody, look, I could be wrong. This is my thesis, right? Thesis is not guaranteed, right? The
Yes.
idea is that, hey, these are really early collectibles for NFTs, and if NFTs are a part of every person's life in the year 2040, will these first items be of high value? I believe they will be, but there's certainly no guarantee, right? There's no guarantee Ethereum exists in 2040, right? So there is tremendous risk there. That's for certain. But you know, just knowing from a scarcity standpoint, I think maybe Ken from Pixelmap tweeted out the other day that, you know, more NFTs were created in the last hour than were created in 2017, right? It's like there's a locked in scarcity number for these old projects that, you know, based on date alone, my gut says they're going to hold some value.
I agree with you. Kuma, you want to ask any questions?
Yeah, I got a cool. What is some of the first NFTs that you ever bought and had in your wallet?
It's, well, I guess on that kind of magical week, you know, crypto cats, and I can't remember. I think there was a price to those, so those are probably the first NFTs that I bought. Were probably crypto cats. Mooncats were free to claim, so I claimed. You know, I thought I made a video on it because it was such a incredible day. I thought I had claimed 30 Mooncats on the Mooncat rediscovery day, but I didn't know what gas was at that time. I mean, I knew you had to pay gas, but I didn't recognize that when people are aping into a project, you should pay more gas. That I had no clue, and I ended up getting 4 Mooncats, and I had like 25 failed Mooncat transactions. Bro, tell me about it, man. Wow. Regrets, man. If you don't know regrets, you don't know NFTs. You know, but so many of these, like even the next day was curio cards, right? And somebody had DM'd me, so I actually could have had a bunch of curio cards on the rediscovery day, and they were like $5 a card at that point in time. Man. And you could get as many as you want. You could get 100 at a time, right? But I didn't recognize, but I did the math because the curio cards, each one was its own contract, and I was looking at like contract 10, right? So curio card number 10, and at that moment in time, it was like, oh yeah, they were only $5 each, but the total supply was like 100,000 curio cards of curio card number 10, and I was like, well, Jesus, 5 times 100,000. My monkey brain's like, well, that's $500,000. What are the odds that the total market value of this one card is going to be $500,000? And I was like, dude, this is like, so I didn't end up buying any curio cards on that day. What I didn't recognize at the time was that there was this built-in mechanism where the number of cards would automatically burn down to like 2,000 of that particular card and create this, you know, scarcity of the card. So that was like a huge loss. I can't remember. I did the math on that. It was like, well, that was a $300,000 mistake or whatever. You know, it's like, but you know, them's the breaks, man. It's like, yeah. So that was my trial by fire. And, you know, you live and learn, although I kept learning. Like I did not make those magical, like it still did not fully kick in for me till probably like 6 months later about like, no, man, you've got to really ape. Like if you see an opportunity, like you really have to go in. But with that, there's tremendous risk. Like we've all bought stuff and it's just, you know, turned out to be a scam or worthless. Like nobody escapes that. I mean, nobody, unless you're not playing. Like, and if you don't play, you're never going to have that huge upside. So yeah, it's it's been cool. But yeah, I'd say the first one was crypto cats.
That's
Absolutely. What's some of your favorite communities that like, because I've stumbled into a couple NFT projects, right? And well, what sticks out to me for someone is like the people that are in there that I get to build a relationship with and
Sure.
kind of get to know. So what are some of those projects that stick out to you that you feel like have some really cool people that you happen to meet in them?
Well, it's interesting. One thing I would say that with the community aspects of NFTs is that they're very fluid, right? And you see during like a rediscovery, for example, with curio cards, right? The rediscovery was actually not, it was kind of quiet. Like it was like there were a few hundred of us maybe in the Discord, right?
Mhm.
And then it kind of like just kind of maintained that, maybe grew slowly over time. And then like in July, Gary V bought a bunch of curio cards, like literally hundreds of curio cards, and curio cards went absolutely nuts. And the Discord explodes and the price explodes. And then, curio cards are at Christie's and they're at Sotheby's and all this sort of stuff happens, right? And the community's crazy and it's huge. And then it goes quiet again, right? And then the price falls. And then there's a core group of people in there and it gets smaller and quieter, And I look at these and it's like, well, that's actually what's really awesome about the NFTs is that you get this cycle of like new people coming in and discovering the cool aspects of it. And then it grows a little bit more. And then maybe you have one crazy price run and then it comes back down again. And so you get this like fluid movement of the different Discords and different projects and different collectors. And I think that's really cool about the way NFTs work, right? Is that they can go through these cycles and the NFTs are still there, right? And the NFTs can still be used. And we're so early in this process that the interoperability of NFTs and how they're used in games or in real life, man, we haven't even begun that process. That process, we're at like, if there are 100 steps in that process to get to 2040, we're at step 1.5 right now. So we're so early in that process and I'm super excited for that. But I mean, some of the cool ones that I love in the historical space, look, I love Ken at Pixel Map. Ken's a great dude. He's trying to layer on like additional, benefits and value for his community. Like he's building a game on top of his NFTs and stuff. It's amazing, right? I love what Ken does. I love Curio because Curio is like it's like being in, it's one of your first loves, but the artists are all in there. You can chat with Robeck and Max and, and Daniel and the team. I mean, it's awesome. It's basically a community-led project at this time. It's pretty awesome. I like the ones that are like, for me, it's like these ones that are almost community-led. Like I like Curio. I like Realms of Ether, right? Realms of Ether is this like 2017 game where they were never able to find the developer behind the project, right? And the contract itself, the contract itself was never verified on Etherscan, right? So I tell people, look, there's a lot of risks in this project, right? Like the dev could come back and like make more castles or take all the castles from us. Like we literally have no idea what's going on with the contract, but it's community led. They built a wrapper for it. That wrapper funds, like the funds from OpenSea, go into a DAO. They've already earned like, I don't even know. It's like over 100 grand. It's like 150 grand for that DAO to buy an in real life castle. Dude, that's just like cool, fun stuff that the community's doing, right? And like, and they've got this cool community that does these awesome like memes and stuff. And the money earned by the project is kept by the community. And like, that's really cool. And I like how that's kind of just moving the ball forward. And another one like that is Panda Earth, right? Panda Earth, 2018 NFTs, the devs long gone, doesn't exist. And the community's like, well, we're going to take this over and we're going to wrap the NFTs. And same deal as Realms of Ether. It's like, we get the revenue now and we're going to do with it what we want. And that one might be like saving in real life pandas, right? Whatever it is. I just like that they're doing something. They're building this kind of, as I would say, like they're building the road that people in 10 years are going to walk upon. And it's like, well, they failed, or they did this right, or did that right, or not, or whatever, but they're building this road. And so I'm excited to be in projects, in communities that are doing this sort of stuff, because I think it's really cool.
What do you think of the cryptobots game that's coming out soon? The new game with the new collection. Because I know you were involved in that, and that was one of the first times we as a group sort of spent time in a Twitter space finding out about the original cryptobots, and Sleepy was giving us all this great advice. And of course, I missed loads of opportunities to get them. And they've had a couple of little rediscovery kind of moments, but they're still quite cheap right now. But I'm really excited for the new game. They've got a big studio behind them and the original devs all involved. And I'm quite excited to get that beta in a matter of a couple of weeks now.
Sure.
What do you think of them, Adam?
It's I know this. It's really hard to launch a successful game. That I just know, because my brain is still locked very much in like business. I've had businesses my whole life, and so I'm always like, well, building a successful game is really hard. But that said, can they, like you said, they have a studio behind them. They're putting in tons of work. They have as good a chance as anybody, right? So whether or not it's successful, honestly, I have no idea how well or poorly they're going to do. I wish them all the luck. Like, I've had them on Twitter Spaces chatting about them, because it is a 28, or actually I think it's a 2017 NFT. It's right on the border there, right? And cryptobots is funny for me, because I think I might have told this before. It's like, we found cryptobots back in like April of last year, and like my buddy and I were like looking at the contract and like, shoot, they're still there. Wait, can we mint them? No, they're priced. We can buy them, whatever. And we're like diving in on cryptobots through like the contract. Like, we're looking at the contract, trying to figure it out, and the website's down and it's not working. And we're like, dang, what about, these are kind of cool. They're robots. These are the images. And then I still remember the DM I got. My friend's like, oh man, they're already on OpenSea, right? And it was like, at the time, we thought that if a project was already on OpenSea, well, then you're not really, quote unquote, rediscovering it, right? Yeah. And so for us at the time, we're like, well, what's the point of telling people about this? It's already public, right? Yeah. It's already out there on OpenSea. Mm-hmm. That was a mistake, because the reality was that nobody knew about these projects, right? Mm-hmm. And so those early projects that were able to get onto OpenSea, like, I've learned later that what that was the guys who were creating OpenSea, literally it was a few guys, they were going around to conferences, and anybody who was building anything, they were like begging them to come on OpenSea. Like, all these early projects, literally all early 2018 projects, were building their own marketplace 100%, because OpenSea didn't exist at that time. And OpenSea was going around like, literally, please let us, host your NFTs on OpenSea. And so actually these early projects like cryptobots that actually got on OpenSea, I think are really cool, because it was like they were first movers to integrate into these like marketplaces and stuff. And so yeah, there were a couple like that. Crypto Fighters is another, where we found them and stuff, and then it was like, oh, it's on OpenSea. Oh darn, And so we didn't we never kind of talked about them as like rediscoveries, because we always felt like, oh, they're on OpenSea, they're already quote unquote discovered. Right? Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those quirks in the Matrix kind of thing, where these guys were just so early, but then they somehow integrated in onto OpenSea, which is kind of cool in my opinion.
It is very cool, and I love going back on that the Wayback Machine, and seeing how it looked back in the day on its early stages, and how it's so insane to look at that, and then look at some chat rooms where people were talking about their first experiences with minting an NFT. It's insane. It's insane to me. What do you think about? I wanted to get into Mandelduck and his his experiments.
Sure.
I saw that you retweeted the other day, like yesterday, I believe, um, his tweet, and what he was saying on that tweet was that he essentially made a game which, instead of paying him Bitcoin, paid you Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And he had no idea how this was going to be sustainable.
Yeah. So this is, if any of you all don't know, this is Christian, who basically made this game called Saratobi back in 2015 or 16, which very possibly, if not the first, it was one of the very first games where it was play to earn. You literally played and you literally earned, and you earned Bitcoin. And so he basically, I mean, we in the historic NFT space, Christian and Saratobi are held in very, very high esteem, because what he was doing with early gaming is really something special. And so he built this game called Saratobi, which first of all allowed you to earn Bitcoin just by playing. You would basically get tipped in Bitcoin. And, you know, that in itself is amazing. And so what he also did, which was pretty incredible as well, was allowed you to pull NFTs from other games and use those in game, in his own game. And I mean, this is what we look at and we say, well, this is like what we envision the metaverse being in the future, right? Which is, if I hold this Bored Ape NFT, other games and metaverses, and we don't even know what yet, will allow the holder of that NFT certain privileges, skins. I mean, we're all just throwing out ideas because we have no idea what it's going to look like, but we do understand this interoperability between NFTs and different environments is going to happen, right? Yeah. And so we're not sure how it's going to be built yet, what's going to be built, but we understand that this is happening, right? And Christian, to his credit, was building this back in like 2015, right? Insane. So super crazy early. And so what he allowed people to do is take your Spells of Genesis NFTs and use them in game. And he did that, as he said, he did that to try and grab users from Spells of Genesis to use his game. It's like super smart. This is what the way people are kind of looking at it right now. But what he basically did was use, for the very first time on the blockchain that we can kind of find, is this interoperability between, you know, games or metaverses. He created that. And so, Christian and Saratobi, you can find the Saratobi NFTs, the Ninja Suit NFTs. You know, we kind of hold up there as like, wow, this is super early, very historic NFT from a technological perspective of like how this is important on the historical timeline. Saratobi really stands out.
100%. Yeah, and Kuma, I'm sorry, you want to say something?
Saying that's crazy. What he was that early, what he was building. Like, people are trying to attempt to integrate some of those things right now. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, he had other things that are even like he got around. It was funny because he's told this story now of like trying to work this on the App Store. You can imagine Apple doesn't want you, you know, taking Bitcoin as payment. Like, that was a rule on Apple. So he literally was like, well, what about flipping the script where I just pay people in Bitcoin, right? Totally counterintuitive. And, but yeah, he did that. And, so really, you know, sometimes people are geniuses and they don't know it, and they think they're just doing kind of interesting stuff. But certainly when you get to that point and that early in the timeline, you just got to go, wow, that's some genius stuff right there. Really incredible. He also built this other game which allowed you to drop NFTs, geolocate NFTs and drop them. He was living in Japan at the time, so like he would drop them all over Tokyo or whatever, and other people who were using the app could go and pick up the NFTs. And there are these stories of them like dropping, you know, Nakamoto Pepes around, which were at the time were like $2 or whatever, right? You know, these cards that are now $500,000, and he's dropping them all over Japan, and people are, you know, it's just this crazy stuff that they were doing back then is it's incredible.
That's incredible. And there's so much, and Japan has a rich like culture of NFTs as well. It's not as big as here, I believe, but it's
Yeah.
still it's a very niche community, and they're very tight. I've seen pictures of community members meeting up in 2015, and it's only like 4 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
But it's insane. It's so crazy to me to it's worldwide. Everybody, and
It's worldwide, and it's so small. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, when you're talking about 2014 to 16, the communities are all super small, right? Handfuls of people building what we use now and integrate now, and everybody's talking about now, right?
Yeah.
But back then, it's literally just a handful of people in the world who were doing this, and that's why I think I love telling these stories about what these people were doing, because they had no idea what they were doing, right? They had no idea the impact it would make or where it would take us as a global community. It's literally just laying the first stones in the road,
Yeah.
with no idea where that road was going. They're just doing it because they thought that was cool, or they wanted to build a game, or stuff like that. And that's kind of what you learn over time, is like this. That's the way everything's done. And
Exactly.
so, yeah, but telling those stories has been a real pleasure.
I get goosebumps when you say that, because I recently met about 2 to 3 months ago. I met with some rare Pepe scientists, and I went to that meeting just because it was the test party, the anniversary for test.
Oh,
And
you went to that? Awesome, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
I really wanted to meet Sean. I wanted to meet Theo. I wanted to meet a couple other people from the community, because I've been falling in love with Pepe's. I've loved Pepe for forever, but I never knew that there was rare Pepes. I never ever would have ever imagined that there were rare Pepes, and then there were fake rares, that there were dank rares,
There's
and I
layers, man. It's deep. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, if you wanted to be in a historic NFTs and you just wanted to focus on Pepe's, you'd be busy for the rest of your life. Pepe's is a deep, deep community.
100%. That's the sole reason why I've been lacking in every other department with historicals, because Pepe's just takes so much time.
Yeah.
It's so much time, and then you dig into other projects that the scientists are working on, which were Doge and other projects as well, and it's a deep list. So something I wanted to mention from that is that I understood from talking to them that a lot of the things that they did back in the day were simply experimentation, and they seem to enjoy just being in a community, like in a space together, in a community together, and experimenting together and seeing how far they can push boundaries. And one of the things I really understood from that meeting was that they talked so much about Namecoin and things that Namecoin was able to do at that moment in time was nothing before seen. Like, so I wanted to ask you about Namecoin and your thoughts about Namecoin, because it's very interesting to me, and I'm just diving more into it now. So
sure. Yeah, I view Namecoin kind of on this timeline of course, you start with Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And basically, as far as my view goes, once Bitcoin established this idea of, people got it in their mind that, wait, Bitcoin could be used for provenance, like as a provenance layer for first art, because the artists were like, wow, wait a minute. I can somehow, if I'm able to somehow tie my art on a blockchain like Bitcoin, I can create like this provenance layer. And, so it really was art driven. And we've kind of come, to this road where we are now, where like these artists are having success on Ethereum and stuff, which is fantastic. And it all kind of started with artists too. And so it's kind of this interesting story about artists trying to figure stuff out. And they were trying to do it on Bitcoin with like this thing called colored coins. And how do you attach data to the Bitcoin blockchain to create this kind of provenance layer, right? And the first real best use case was Namecoin. And Namecoin's basically a fork of Bitcoin that allowed you to store data on it. And, it's so funny. You see it, and we know more about Namecoin now than probably ever. But Namecoin, for anybody who doesn't know, had this weird quirk in it, which was they thought the best strategy was, okay, you could create kind of like this digital provenance on Namecoin, but it would expire. And they thought this was a good idea because you think about it, you go back and you say, well, okay, this is 2011 or whatever. And you think about it and you say, well, what was their models at the time? And their model was basically like the URL system. So google.com or yahoo.com, right? Yahoo.com expires, right?
Yeah.
And yahoo.com, they've probably, renewed it, and it's renewed for 1,000 years or whatever. But the reality is at the end of 1,000 years, it actually expires, right? And so they were like, well, let's do that same thing with Namecoin, where all the stuff will expire, and the expiring creates like a vibrant marketplace because people have to maintain it, or if they don't maintain it, somebody else can claim it. Let's do it that way. And looking back now, we say, you guys were idiots. What were you doing? This is so stupid. Blockchain's supposed to be forever. But I do look at it with a softer lens, and I go, well, look, these guys were doing what they thought was the best thing at the time, which was like, no, vibrant marketplaces are created by this, like, no, it's gonna expire, and you're gonna have to renew it, or you could sell it, or this or that. And so this is what they created, and the good and bad along with that. And we've talked about that forever, right? Like this idea of expiring domains on Namecoin, expiring NFTs. Are they NFTs? Can NFTs expire? We've gone down this rabbit hole, right? To a large extent. So I'm happy to talk about it more if you want to, but that's kind of where Namecoin comes in. And Namecoin's a very important part of the history of NFTs, no doubt about it. And but whether or not, how this expiring mechanism plays into NFTs is something we'll probably debate till the end of time, or at least while NFTs are still relevant.
That's one of the biggest things that were being debated over there. It never, nobody ever actually had the last say. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was always sort of like always left up for debate, and I think it always will be. So that's something really cool about that. And also, I had to mention that there's projects built on top of Namecoin, and one that was recently rediscovered is punycodes. Adam, you helped rediscover punycodes. What can you tell us about that ecosystem and its community now?
Well, I definitely didn't discover it. I've helped talk about it because I think it's super cool. But Devoted, and you can jump in their Discord. They really, it's amazing that it was there and it wasn't kind of rediscovered earlier, because back in 2021, there were a group of guys who dug deep on Namecoin and basically got all of the Twitter eggs and the blockheads, right? So they had put in work back in, July of last year. And those guys had basically found something, which were like the Twitter eggs, and they just swooped. They grabbed all of the NFTs, right? So that they didn't discover punycodes at that time was actually quite remarkable, because these guys basically went in and got all the NFTs on Namecoin, which has not been the way that most of the rediscoveries have happened. Most of them, I've tried to live by this, like, I don't know what you would just, a loose code of ethics that you shouldn't hoard all of them. Like if you make a rediscovery, you should try and broadcast it as widely as possible, so as many people as possible can get in. I've tried to do that as to the best of my ability with all these rediscoveries, and not, definitely never hoard them for myself. But these guys did the opposite. They basically got all of the Twitter eggs, all of the blockheads, and then created this like marketplace where it's like you had to pay through the nose to get the Twitter eggs. And it's debated how many millions of dollars these guys made, but they made a lot. There's no doubt about that. A lot, right? So I give the guys at punycodes, with punycodes and in the Discord, a ton of credit, because they very, very easily could have just gotten all of the 2011 punycodes, right? And set the market at 20 ETH each. And if you want one, it's 20 ETH, right? But they didn't. They were super fair about it. and I love what they did, which is basically they grabbed some, and then they went on Twitter, and were like, "Here they are, go get them," which was awesome, and they were super nice. At the time, I was like a little late getting in there, but I grabbed some, and they were very helpful, helping other people grab more. And it's really it's a testament to how good people are in the community, in the historic NFT space. I think it's just great people generally. There are a couple bad eggs, but most people in the space are awesome. And it allowed a really wide distribution of these very, very cool NFTs from 2011, which we will probably always debate. Well, are they NFTs?
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah, they expire. They did expire, so they were renewed. Is the renewal the actual NFT, or is it a second version of the original? We could get into the details of it, but along the chain of the historical NFT timeline, certainly punycodes are right there.
100%. And who's to say we won't have a new standard in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh.
And everything we have now won't be
Bingo, man. Bingo. Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, anybody, you see it in the wider, global cancel culture community.
Yeah.
If you think we have it so figured out right now, and that we are so holy right now, and future generations won't look back on us and be like, dude, what were you guys thinking? Like, you're crazy, right? So try to have a little bit of humility and say, well, we probably don't have everything figured out right now. So I can look at the past with a little bit softer lens and say, hey, they were doing the best they could right then. And this is interesting or cool for whatever reasons. Exactly. And certainly punycodes are definitely cool, because I think this is the core thing you should know with punycodes, that if you guys haven't heard of this before. But this idea of provenance, people were kind of working with this. And this was really the first time, given a kind of new set of rules, that people did art on the blockchain, where they were like, look, through this little piece of code, I can basically tie art to this URL. And that's really cool. Like, people were experimenting, and punycodes are like this first effort to experiment by putting art on the blockchain. And I think that's really special.
100%. And not just hosting the image on somewhere else and then putting the hash on the blockchain, actually hosting the image on the blockchain.
Hosting the image. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's very different. That's something that nowadays a lot of people don't understand, is a lot of the NFTs that we trade nowadays are not on chain.
Sure.
And that's going to be a big topic in the next 5 years, when we start talking about what is yours worth compared to mine, which is on chain, and yours, which could be changed at any time. It's insane. It's insane to me that people haven't wrapped their heads around how valuable having your NFTs on chain is.
Yeah, it's like I say, when people ask me about or dive into this topic specifically, I say it's complicated, because it is complicated, right? There are all different levels of on chain or off. There's all sorts of different levels of, okay, just take a very simple, the image off chain, right? Very common, right? Especially if it was larger, like a video or something, it has to be off chain.
It has to be.
Okay. But how is that off chain stored, right? Is it on my computer? Like, literally, some of these, and I'm not lying, are on the dude's computer in his house. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's that level, right? Then there's the level of it's on a Google Drive, right? Then there's the level, it's on the Amazon web server, right? And then there's the level of, it's on a decentralized storage platform like IPFS, right? Yeah. And then, and then there's on chain, right? And so there's all these different levels, and the communities and the kind of entire NFT space is working through and figuring all this stuff out now, right? Yeah. And so the history of it is complicated for sure, right? And so it's just, there's so many different stories along that chain. Take, for example, curio cards, right? They were really the first project to use IPFS, right? Mm-hmm. What now is super obvious. Like, of course, why wouldn't you use IPFS? Of course you would, right? Yeah. Back then, this was not obvious, right? And there was concern that IPFS wouldn't exist, right? So yeah, so at the end of the day, you kind of look back and you go, well, they were doing the best they could, and it is what it is, and we just look at it from today's lens and say, well, this is the best standard of today. The best standard of today is that your on-chain data points to an IPFS address. That IPFS address can't be changed. So there's no way to change the image that's on that particular location. That's ideal. Is that going to be ideal in 2040? I have no idea.
We don't know. Yeah.
I would seriously doubt it. It would be crazy because, like you've been talking about with all of these, each of these projects has effectively discovered new ways of doing things. That's what they were doing. They were experimenting. They found a path to get us to where we are today, which is just fascinating. So, but yeah, I think the guarantee is there's no way this will be the same.
I would say that the guarantee is there's no way what we have now is going to be the same in 2040. That I would say is probably guaranteed. Even
5 years down the line, I think the pace at which things move these days, it would be so surprising if it was.
I'll give you one kind of example of this, and this was one where I was helping this artist who did a 2017 project, and she's an in real life artist, legit like artist, right? And she understood at her, as best she could in 2016 going into 2017, this idea of provenance and how to tie it. But nobody knew really how to tie it then. Like the curio guys, sure, they did it in early 2017, but she didn't really recognize that. And what she did recognize was kind of old school art, and old school art is based on copyright. Of course, you get it copyrighted at the US Copyright Office, right? And so what she did was she built these NFTs, right? One of ones tied to her art, which was the art was copyrighted at the US Copyright Office. And she thought her idea was at that time, well, here's the NFT and here's the copyright. They go together, and this is the best way to create provenance for my art. And I helped her kind of relaunch this because I thought it was cool, and I thought her efforts at that time were well intentioned, and at that time the best use of the technology. Like, she was trying to make best use of the technology. Boy, the market was like, no, that, look, and this is 2021. The market of all our apes were like, no way, this needs to be tied to the blockchain. And how do you tie copyright to the blockchain? It can't be done. And man, she was like, oh my God, she had no idea what she was getting into, right? She was had never probably in her entire life gotten more hate in 15 minutes than she'd ever gotten in her entire life. This is just an artist trying to do cool stuff. Yeah. Right. And, and I was like, guys, this is a legit artist. She's done legit work, and she ended up after that, getting all the provenance, laid out, having an independent gallery, verify the copyrights, all this sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it was the current market at that point in time was no, we want IPFS. And if it's not IPFS, then it doesn't exist. And it's whew, okay, well, we'll see. But there are ones like that, and she was one who got kind of caught up in a tornado or a hurricane, where she was overwhelmed from, just because she's an artist. She's not used to NFT marketplace apes who just want to sell stuff. And so that was a kind of a crazy part of last year where I thought, well, here's a legit artist doing some cool stuff back in 2017, literally the second artist on Ethereum. That's pretty interesting. And I think she'll actually have her day going forward. But it was an interesting kind of moment in time where we ran into an artist trying to do something cool and unique, and the market at that particular moment in time just came at her like a hurricane. and she was not prepared. I wasn't prepared, honestly. It was an interesting time, that was for sure.
Wow. I could see that happening. Just because of like the market and how they are. They're very, it's very strange. It's very strange to say the least.
I mean, we've seen it a bit too with other especially with NFTs that were done on Counterparty, right? And okay, it was an early token, but was it an NFT? Did it have art? Was the art added later? We've gone through all of these kind of things, and
I've been in that conversation.
Oh yeah. And it gets complicated, right? It gets very in depth, usually very complicated.
Very complicated. I believe it's that sort of thing is a case by case study, because of certain people that do say that they made the token and they had the artwork in mind of what they wanted it to look like, but they weren't able to upload it at that moment in time.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
There's something else. There's the people that just had the token and now they see the success and they're just
right. They're trying to just, and I think our community is pretty good at figuring those people out, right? The ones who are just coming back for the money grab.
Exactly.
I think our community is pretty good at figuring that stuff out.
100%. They smell it from a mile away.
They smell it from. Look, these are smart people, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of smart people in the crypto and NFT space. So yeah, I think generally people are pretty good at sniffing that stuff out.
100%. One last topic I wanted to ask you about, because we did jump into IP for a little bit. V1 punks. I know you've talked about them.
Sure.
A couple about a month ago, month and a half ago, I believe, was when all that went down. Almost 2 months ago now. I wanted to ask you, because you even had an IP lawyer on a Twitter space.
Sure. Yeah.
And well, now we're more informed, so I'd love to get in on that.
Yeah, so CryptoPunks, V1 CryptoPunks,
V1,
if any of your listeners don't know, basically when you think of CryptoPunks today, and people are trading CryptoPunks for millions of dollars and stuff, the reality is that's the second CryptoPunks contract. Okay, what happened with the original CryptoPunks contract when it was released by Larva Labs was that there was a bug in the marketplace contract. So again, there was no OpenSea at the time. So everybody had to create their own marketplace. And what happened was in the contract itself was that if you put your punk up for sale, somebody could buy the punk. So they would get the punk from you. And then the person could claim the ETH back as well. So basically they could steal your punk from you. And it took about a day before people realized that this was possible. And people basically started taking everybody's punk. And what Larva Labs did, their response to this was they basically took a snapshot of who got the original punks, and they created a brand new contract, and then they airdropped all 10,000 punks to the different holders, right? So basically, a day after this happened, or 2 days after this happened, everybody in theory was made whole. And those are what we now know as CryptoPunks, are these V2 contract CryptoPunks. So all these CryptoPunks that were the V1 or the original contract have been sitting around. Like, that's the thing about NFTs. They don't go away.
Can't delete them.
They don't go away. And so basically in April or May of 2021, so last year, some people recognized like, hey, there's all these old punks sitting there. And at that time, a guy on Twitter named Fubar actually built a wrapper for these. So it would allow you to trade these on OpenSea. He built a wrapper for it. And some people put their V1 punks into the wrapper, and some were sold on OpenSea. And Larva Labs at that time put a cease and desist order, into OpenSea, and that got taken down off of OpenSea. And then late last year, or maybe even early this year, basically some new guys were like, hey, let's redo this again. Let's not only create a wrapper, but create a brand new marketplace that won't be able to be taken down. And they created a new Discord, and they did it again. Basically what Fubar did back in April or May of last year, they redid it and created a marketplace, put them back on OpenSea, and then the kind of shitstorm happened because Larva Labs actually got into it at that point in time, where they were like, these aren't the real CryptoPunks, but we hold a bunch of them. We're going to, I mean, it was literally an insane tweet. It was like, we're going to sell these and then we're going to FUD the shit out of them. It was literally an insane tweet. And they got so much hell on Twitter for that, that it was just incredible. And what it did was actually pump up the V1 CryptoPunks, because it brought this idea to a whole new group of people who were like, what are you even talking about? Mm-hmm. And that's when the historic community comes in and we're like, hey guys, there are these things called NFTs, right? It's like there are old contracts, and let's talk about what this means. What does it mean when you have an old contract? And it brought this to the forefront of kind of crypto Twitter in general, and just NFTs in general, historic NFTs in general. It brought this conversation that we'd all been having for the last 8 months to the forefront. And that was pretty cool to see and be a part of that, right? This conversation.
Yeah.
And, there's no perfect answer. But for sure we know that, Larva Labs doesn't own it, right? It's mine. It's in my wallet. I own it, right? And it all kind of culminated with, Yuga Labs bought the IP for CryptoPunks, and that took it into this whole new realm. And we're seeing kind of this play out now, and obviously CryptoPunks V1s have had a huge run up in price, right? Another missed opportunity. I'm sure you probably missed that opportunity too, right? You could have bought these things for half an ETH.
Half an ETH, literally half an ETH, right before their second or their third rediscovered by this time.
Yeah, and so I don't know what they're at now. They're probably at 20 ETH or something like that. And of course, the market's going to decide long term how much these are worth or not worth or whatever. But what that did do actually is I think it challenged developers to take a second look at themselves. And the classic example is Ethereum, which that developer was so anti. These are garbage. They're not the original ones. The earlier versions are not the originals. I mean, he was screaming that from the rooftops.
Very toxic on Twitter,
yeah, for 6 months. And you guys are scammers for trying to tell people about this. And guess what he is now? All of my old contracts are now a part of one big happy family. It's like, no shit, man. We were talking about that last April. And you're telling me, now you've turned the corner. Well, fine. I mean, so he finally came around to, what we were saying before, which is like, no, what this is they're all legitimate in that they are all legitimate contracts. What the value is or not, that's up to the market to decide. This is kind of just the history of it, which is there was a first contract, then there was a second contract, and here we are with whatever they are. And the dev may support one contract over another. He may work on one contract over another, meaning building layers of value or utility on top of that. That's awesome. But let's just talk about what all the contracts are and what they mean. And that's what kind of the historical NFT space is interested in.
Exactly. And the history of the space. That's my biggest takeaway, is that you preserve history and you preserve the stories that are very, very important, because these are going to be the doors for future adoption. When they come in, they're going to want to know what previously happened, so they have an idea of what's going to come. I mean, that's at least my idea. I like my way of thinking, because I look at these projects and I see a lot of experimentation, and when I see that, and the ones that truly did the right thing, experimented like no other. And the ones that I'm seeing take that approach are definitely Yuga Labs and a couple others, but those are going to be the ones that ultimately dictate, where this market goes. And like just the crypto skulls being rediscovered and then talked about by Gary definitely brought a wave, and everything else also moved with it. So
Yep.
I do understand that it just takes one of these projects to have a great story and great representation for every other project to also be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, it's up to you to fall in love with the community at that
Yep.
point.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and I love, like, with the crypto skulls, you know, people are like, well, is it historic? I'm like, you know, it is what it is. It's a
It is what it is.
2019 project, right? Are they doing cool stuff that I'm psyched about? Yeah. I mean, I only hold one crypto skull, right? I don't have a big vested interest in it at all. But I do love that the dev gave, you know, whatever, 1,400 skulls to the DAO. You know, basically like $5 million. I love that, right? And I love that you know, in the various communities I'm a part of, when there are these kind of people taking chances and doing new stuff. Yeah, I'm a big supporter of that. Absolutely.
100%. It's the only way we could keep moving forward and paving the way for you know, for the next ones to come.
Yep.
And just experiment even more. Take it to another to the next step. Yeah. So
I've got one here. So what about Doogies? Because that was quite a recent one, wasn't it? And I was part of that massive Twitter space. I think it was sort of slightly after people had realised, and you had that massive Twitter space, and there was probably about 500 people in there, and they were releasing them in batches. And
yeah,
obviously, I was sitting there getting failed transaction after failed transaction, but. Yeah, what about them? Because I kind of FOMO'd into that midway through that space and just went, wow, gotta get these. But I didn't necessarily understand all the story. So what are your thoughts on them?
So when Doogies happened, or I should say before Doogies happened, Lamborghini, who's very, you know, into them and stuff, he had approached me through DM. He's like, hey, look at these ones, right? And I was like, dude, they're 2021, man, come on. But he's like, well, look though, and he shared with me that kind of timeline of 10K PFP graphic that you guys have all seen, right? And I was like, man, that's an interesting story you're telling there, right? It's a really interesting story, right? I don't believe these are like historic, meaning they did something super special, right? But at the same time, PFPs are massively important in today's NFT marketplace, right? There's no doubt about that. And so one of the first ones may have value. I'm not saying these don't have value, and that I don't know. But certainly the story you're telling is certainly interesting. But I said, like, look, man, I'm not gonna like relaunch these as a historical project because I don't believe they are, but I do believe it's an interesting story you're telling. And obviously this was a story that was told with the skulls, right, as well. And this idea of PFPs and how we got to today's, you know, modern PFP is an interesting storyline, right? And whether or not these hold value over time, like, I have no idea. They may not. I don't know. But certainly that narrative around how we got to modern PFPs and how they're used literally by everybody who is on NFT Twitter, like 100% of people have a PFP, is really interesting. And if all of these, you know, Doogies, Ether things, you know, if all of these are accepted as part of this timeline, it could be, certainly from an investment standpoint, could be very, very interesting. But I told him, like, look, I'll talk to you about it and I'll give you the best advice I can because I want to help people, but I don't know. I'm not going to like promote this. Right. Yeah. And so, you know, they did it. They did the relaunch. I bought a bunch, not a bunch. I bought like, they were selling them in like lots of 3 or whatever. I think I bought like 4 lots of 3 or 4 lots of, so I maybe had like 9 or 12 Doogies, right? But I wasn't going to talk about it, and I told him I wasn't going to talk about it or whatever. and because I didn't want to like bring kind of weight to it. And that honestly, looking back, was probably a mistake, because I did join that Twitter Spaces that you're talking about, because people were like, everybody's DMing me like, dude, you got to join this Twitter Spaces. And I was like, whatever, I'll join the Twitter Spaces. Right. And I did, because, I wanted to, because everybody I know was in that Twitter Spaces. Literally every single person in this Torque NFT space was in that Twitter Spaces. Right. Yeah. And we talked about it and stuff. But people, and I got a lot of shit for that. Like, people were literally like, you're pumping doogies. And it's like, dude, if joining a Twitter Spaces is pumping a project, well, dude, I've pumped every fucking project. Like, I've been in Twitter Spaces about fucking, I don't know, Yetis, monkeys, and God knows what, everything, man. I'm in Twitter Spaces 10 times a week.
Hey, shout out the Yetis. They're gonna be historic.
But, and at the end of the day, like, what it is what it is. But I did get a lot of shit for that. And I've learned a lesson from that, which is like, I do need to be very careful to not even appear to kind of lend my hand to something like this. But, at the end of the day, do I think Lamborghini and kind of all those people who are interested in that, PFP narrative, have they created a pretty interesting narrative? Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Whether or not that plays into historical NFTs or not, at this point in time, I don't believe they're historical NFTs, right? Because 2021, I like talking about projects that led up to 2021 happening, right? That's my perspective. Will the PFP 10K narrative be really important in 10 years? It's very possible.
10, right? Yeah.
It could be wrong. It could be not possible. Like, maybe PFPs aren't used, or something else is used, or nothing's used. I have no idea. So maybe PFPs are stupid and don't exist in 10 years. That's possible too. Who knows, man? I don't know.
When it comes down to identity, we can't really, but that's the one thing that I know for a fact it will be used for, especially in the metaverse and in these spaces that we talk in, these social spaces. It's a representation of us.
It's interesting. I actually thought about and trying to develop ways where we can take these different communities that we're in, right? So we may both be in a V1 Punks community, and then we're also in a crypto cards community, right? Talking about the history of Bitcoin. And we're also in, I don't know, the latest monkey Discord community, because we like the pictures on now, right? So we're in various communities, right? How do we represent kind of all those communities quickly or rapidly or through a PFP, right? That's kind of something that's interesting, that I think is, people are starting to explore that right now, but I don't think anybody's figured that out.
That is fascinating.
That's a really good one right there. I honestly, I always come back into to thinking about like skins and like remembering why Vitalik even made Ethereum for being restricted from using a certain skin on World of Warcraft. So I think it's still gonna hold true for a very long time in the sense of ownership of your items, especially in game, because we're going towards that route where play to earns are going to be very popular in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be, I hope it's going to be one of the biggest franchises in the game industry, play to earn, instead of because why would you want to play, and especially if they're going to be making consoles for these play to earn games. That's game changing. Once you actually get a console that you can play to earn on, and then have your earnings directed straight to cold storage, it's going to be insane. I honestly do think it's going to be insane, especially when you're able to also use that currency for other in-game items that you could then sell for even more. It's going to be insane. It's going to be a whole economy based around different ecosystems and games. I can't wait, honestly. Have you, by any chance, explored the Bitcoin SB side of NFTs? Because I recently just got introduced to it by Dankmaster on Twitter. I believe you know about him, Dankmaster.
Sure, I think so.
He likes Pepe's, and he recently introduced me to it. And there's this app that it feels like the most Web3 social media ever, because you get paid to interact, and you have to pay for interactions. So every time you follow somebody, you pay a certain amount of Bitcoin.
Well, what's that? I got to write that down now.
I'll give you so it's called, give me one. It's called Twitch. So like, think about it like Twitch, but with the E. Twitch.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I'm going to DM it to you as well. But
okay, cool.
It's an amazing community, because they brought me along, and they basically they sent me some money just to get started.
Sure.
A whole bunch of the people followed me and ended up commenting and stuff like that. That gives me also money. And then they wanted me to be part of the community even more. So they're like, hey, if I send you this NFT, can you put it as your profile picture?
Yeah.
And really become part of the community. And I'm like, yes, I'll do it. And he sent me an NFT, and I put it up, and it feels so good. How, not about the money, but just about the kindness. And because it's cool that I earned over like $70 in a day, mind-boggling, on a social media app, just by interacting with other fellow NFT enthusiasts and Bitcoin enthusiasts. Because the only reason why I'm on that platform is because I'm pro all BTC chains. I'm not only invested in one BTC. I do believe there's more than one BTC. It's just my frame of thinking for the long term. But yeah, I want to introduce you to that app and that platform, just so you could later on tell me how it's insane. How
No, I mean, my gut, just you explaining it to me, my gut says, well, this is the way Bitcoin worked at the beginning too. Like, everybody, you talk to anybody who was in Bitcoin early, they gave away Bitcoin like it was going out of style. Like, they wanted, please use this, like, please. And that was part of, like, when we were talking about Christian and Saratobi, when he built that app to drop NFTs all around, you could also drop Bitcoin, like, and people were dropping Bitcoin all over the place, right? Because they wanted to get use, they wanted people to be involved. And man, like, what you're talking about, like, my brain says, when you talk about, it's the mixing of this idea of play to earn, social, crypto, we have no idea what it's going to be, man. And like, my gut says it's going to be some sort of weird mixing of all this sort of stuff into this thing where you get paid to be a part of, and community-based ownership, and honestly, we have no idea how it's going to be built, right? But I love that, guys are building apps like this, and it may fail, it may not, but it moves us all forward into this community-based P2P trading and ownership world that is possible. And who knows how it's going to be. Trust me, nobody knows. Like with the internet, and you guys have all seen the like David Letterman interview of Bill Gates, where Bill Gates is laying out his future, and Letterman's literally laughing in his face, like, you're crazy, this is stupid, right? Why would I want to listen to a baseball game on the computer? I have a radio. Don't be an idiot, I and it's that. Like, no, Bill. I mean, no, Dave. Like, this could be something big, and Dave's like literally laughing in his face. We're at the same point right now. Like, we 100%. Intuit it. We know that this is something. We know it. We don't know how it's going to be, but it's exciting to be a part of, and just be a part of these communities as people build new stuff, and like you're doing, trying new stuff. And it's like, you've told me about that, and now I'm like, oh, well, if I do this and I mix it with this other part, it creates something else, right? And I think it's just going to be, man, there's so many opportunities. It's hard to even wrap your head around the potential, but it's amazing. It literally is amazing. And I know most of the world has no idea what the heck we're up to, but I'm pretty fucking excited.
There's no doubt we're gonna fail on a lot of fronts, but we're gonna be fading forward. That's the biggest
That's right.
key takeaway from this is that there are gonna be failures, but we're failing forward. These are things that we have to learn from in order to improve and scale. So
I mean, even like you just talked about that app and what crypto enables, right? Doing an app, something like that, where the community actually owns the app. Yeah. Like, dude, this is not even in the realm of possibility in Web 2. Like, you know, you can't do that, right? In Web 3, you can, right? Like even something like that, where I'm part of this community, I put in effort, I put in energy, I put in my time, my words, my voice, my everything, and I actually own the platform. This is something new. Like, and the implications of that, dude, you can't even, nobody can possibly comprehend that. I think that the metrics get completely wild when you have ownership of something that you are putting your time and energy into. Boy, we are undervaluing how powerful that is, because right now the entire world is putting their time and energy into Twitter and, you know, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and we're putting our energy and attention into it. And, you know,
we're not,
I can do that and own it. It's a whole nother ball game.
Right now, it's literally just what you said. Right now, interacting on Twitter, who gets paid on Twitter? For the interactions that you receive, and for, unless you have, you know, certain sponsorships and stuff like that. But just imagine being able to get paid for those 20,000 followers that you have. Every interaction that they have with you, and correlates with the whole network, and you get paid a certain fee for it. What's so crazy about that app is that not only do you get paid directly from interaction directly with you, but if somebody were to interact with you and then somebody else interacts with their comment on your thread, you get paid, because it's your thread at the end of the day. No matter if their comment is the most popular on your thread, you still get paid a split of each interaction given to that person's comments on your thread.
That's interesting. Yeah.
and you could, there's the one of the things that I love the most is that how you have job postings, and how these job postings work is that you're allowed to add a certain amount of it's just like a Google ad in the sense of
so you can boost it by putting more kind of
more money, more
token into it or whatever. Yeah.
Topping up BTC, depending on what you want the most from. Do you want likes or do you want retweets? And you put this listing up on the app, and you allow for people to connect their app with their Twitter and verify that they actually went on Twitter, liked the post, retweeted the post, and replied, and boom, they get paid for that interaction. And you're getting genuine people to look at your promoted tweet. It's insane.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to check that out, man.
Yeah, but I'm very happy you came on, Adam. We should if you guys have no more questions for Adam, we should be wrapping up. He's given us a lot of his time, and it's very valuable.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you for coming. Absolutely.
I was going to ask
through Sleepy. Appreciate you coming. I appreciate your time. 100%. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say we would be missing an opportunity if I didn't say to Adam. So is there something out there that we could be getting into now at a reasonable price point? Is there something? What's the next sort of thing we should be looking for in terms of these? What would I mean, obviously that's a hard one, because you kind of don't know it until you find it, and then when you find it, you're gonna. But is there anything?
Look, man, look, I suck at trading, and I would never give any advice as like buy this now because it's going up. That definitely do not listen to me. I would say my recommendation to people who are interested in historical NFTs is get in, start doing some work, right? Get into Discords with projects you think might be interesting. You can just, the easiest way to do that, go to my Twitter bio, jump in my Discord, and just ask around in there. They'll point you to dozens of different projects, right? Get in those projects and see how you vibe with the community, maybe with the devs, and look at it when you go to buy one of these projects. If you truly believe in the idea of historical NFTs, do not be looking for, something to go up short term. Look at it like, how can I pass this down to my kid in a decade, right? If you look at it that way, that's my best strategy for winning. And again, not financial advice, because look, the reality is this could all fail and these go to zero. That's possible. All right. But if you believe in the thesis, that would be my best strategy. Find ones you vibe with and they make sense for you, and plan on holding for a decade or more. And that's that's the strategy I'm doing. And that's the one I would recommend if you were thinking about getting into historic NFTs.
That's fantastic advice to finish on, I think. And massive thanks. I'm fascinated. I'm going to be watching this back about 3 times, I think, to make sure I pick it all up.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Adam.
Appreciate your time, Adam.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
We would love to have you back at a later episode to discuss other things like Terra Nullius, which is basically how me and all these guys met, which was actually experimenting with Terra Nullius the moment that you guys posted on the Discord.
Yep.
And said, guys, go and mint these. And I was like, what? How do you
we can get into it. It's this idea of what is an NFT, right? And so we could talk about that one for a while. Yeah.
That was a long one. That one I could
that was a lot of fun.
We would have to have a full show just on that one. Yeah.
That's
just
the
on
first
Terra
time I
Nullius.
minted out of a contract and everything. Yeah. Me and
I'd love to set up something just for Terra Nullius, to be honest, because so much happened there. And then the drama on Twitter, and then everything that happened, it was so much, and I haven't been able to actually watch anything to catch everybody up on that story. So I'd love to have you back on at a later date so we could discuss that.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, anytime.
Awesome. Really, thank you, Adam. Hope to be talking to you soon, man. Really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Same sort of time. Thank you, Adam. Wonderful. Excellent stuff. Cheers.
Cheers.